Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Today we are, although meeting virtually, Manitoba Music is a settler organization based on Treaty 1 territory, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene people, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. I also want to recognize the strong Inuit community we have here in Manitoba. My name is Ashley Bienage. I am the Indigenous Music Development Coordinator here at Manitoba Music. Today I am joined by Noel Habel, joining us from Canada Council for the Arts to talk about the Creating, Knowing, and Sharing Fund. This info session will be helpful for artists and industry who are looking to apply for the Canada Council March deadline, and for those who are preparing to apply for the Indigenous Music Arts Council Grant Writing Incubator. For more information on that, there will be a link in the chat section or in the comment section, indigenousmusic.ca/incubator. The deadline for this incubator is going to be February 11th, this Friday. So make sure to check out the requirements for that and get your applications in sooner than later. And don't hesitate to email me at Ashley at manitobamusic.com if you have any questions. This incubator is going to set you up with a mentor to assist you with the grant writing process. You'll also have an opportunity to meet with a program advisor, Noel and Tracy, from Manitoba Arts Council during one of the sessions to ask any more specific questions about your grant. If you have any questions during the process, during the info session, you can either leave them in the comments and I will be sure to ask Noel during his presentation, or we can save them to the end. With that, Noel, I will let you pop on screen. Hello, how are you?
Hi.
Sorry, I'm a little rusty with the live streams. So, how are you doing?
I am awesome. It's a beautiful, balmy day here on Fossambeau-sur-le-Lac near Quebec City. And want to get out onto the outdoor rink before everything melts tomorrow. So,
good call. Good call. I got a new fall/winter jacket, and it's the perfect weather for it right now. We've had some really, really cold weather the past few weeks, but I've been really enjoying being stylish and not bundled up. So I would love to let you get started, though, and talk about the Creating, Knowing, and Sharing Fund. So I will hide myself on screen, but I'll pop in every once in a while with some questions and such. So take it away.
Well, I just want to mention that typically if we would meet in person, there would be a whole host of formalities to convince you all that I am not the evil government agent that you may or may have imagined coming forth. I am a bureaucrat, however, and I have a lot to say. The program is huge. There's a lot of information. And just like your university days, it's a lot like trying to drink from a fire hydrant. So if you've ever tried that, you're going to know what this 1 hour session is going to be like. So I'm going to skip to a lot of the important stuff. Typically, I give overviews of what the Canada Council is, what we do typically, what the Creating, Knowing, and Sharing program is all about. And I don't want to skip over that just yet. So in case you didn't know, the Canada Council for the Arts is a national arts funder. It provides grants to Canadian artists across the country to the tune of approximately $350 million a year. So that's our parliamentary allocation. The Creating, Knowing, and Sharing program is we used to be one of 6, but I think they're one of 11 initiatives and programs that the Canada Council offers. The Creating, Knowing, and Sharing program is specifically for Indigenous, First Nation, Métis, and Inuit applicants and professional artists. It is a multidisciplinary program. So it's not just music, it's not just theater, but it's all of these things and so much more in between. We are also interested in language-based artistic practice, land-based interactions and transmissions of artistic practice. So we do a lot of different things. And it's not your typical arts funding program. So with that, that's my very, very quick overview of what the Canada Council and Creating, Knowing, and Sharing does. Ashley wanted me to go over quickly how to get registered. So the process for our arts programming fund is basically through our new web portal system that we implemented back in 2017. So if you go to our website at canadacouncil.ca, conseildesarts.ca for those Francophone people and their Francophone keyboards, the first thing you see is our splash page, and the first thing it says is set yourself up with an account or go straight to the portal or look at all these great, wonderful things that the Canada Council offers. So our website can be a little intimidating. There's a lot of information and it's very confusing. But the one thing that you're going to do if you're planning to apply and you've not already registered is to create an account in our web portal. So there's a tiny little menu item to click, and it brings you to the path of an application, and it'll tell you what the 6 steps of an application is. And from that, you should be able to at least get an overview of what you're dealing with. And just to let you know, in case you have trouble finding it, because it happens once in a while, our website is pretty big, is the 6 steps of the application process are, number 1, creating your account on our web portal system. So this is the important step, and that's what I was about to talk about, and I'll get back to that in a second. The second step is equally important. It's creating an applicant profile. So you have to create this applicant profile with your artistic CV and submit that for validation before, well, typically 30 days before the program deadline. So we're cutting it pretty close now. I think that the next program deadline is, I'm going to say March 16th. That's what it was last year. I could be wrong, but it's around that date. And therefore, February 16th would be the best time, or before then, to submit a profile for validation. The third step would be to actually apply to the program once your applicant profile is validated, because it takes some time for the program officers to review your applicant profile before you can submit an application. But once it's validated, you won't have to do it again. So you apply to the program is number 3. Applicant assessment is the 4th. It takes about, I'm going to say 12 weeks. Sometimes it takes a bit more, depending on the time of year that you've applied. It takes about 3 months to get your application assessed and given a score and a rating. And once that is done, we go to number 5, step number 5, which is the notification of results. You get a letter sent to you through your web portal account. So that's how we notify people. We don't send out emails directly to your email. It'll go to your email account on our web portal, which would possibly send you an email to say that, hey, you got mail again, which is kind of the way things work now. I'm getting old in my years, so like, you know, the idea that they send you an email to tell you that they send you an email strikes me as funny. Anyway, going to number 6 is if you're successful. Step number 6 is really important. It's reporting on the grant. So if you're successful in your grant application, you will receive what we call a grant acknowledgement form. It sets out the conditions of the grant and the way that you have to report on the grant. So reporting on the grant is super important for us, and it's super important for the client, to the grant recipient, because it tells us what you did with the money, and if you did what you said you were going to do, which is the most important thing. And that way we can close the file. If you do not send in your final report, it could keep you from receiving money in the future, so in future applications. So that's sort of the reason that it's so important for clients. The information that we collect in final reports is what makes it important for us. So going back to step number 1, create your account. I'm not an expert on the web portal. In fact, I'm not an expert on most things, but we do have people within the Canada Council that what they do is they help people with their web portal accounts and the web portal profiles, and sometimes even their applications, depending on the type of information they require. So if you're having technical difficulties creating your account, there's a team of people that you can reach out to. It's on the web portal, or on our website, so you'll be able to see who that is. It unfortunately is not me. And as I mentioned, I'm not an expert. In fact, they discourage us from going into the web portal at all. So what I'm about to tell you is the theory that I've been told about the web portal. So in order to create an account, all you really need is an email address. So with that email address, just like the millions of other accounts that you have, you create a username and a password, and there's an email verification that goes to your email account. And once it's confirmed that that is your account, then you have created your web portal account. This is different from an actual profile. So I'm going to focus on the Creating, Knowing, and Sharing program, but it's just a small little note to mention that it takes 2 profiles to apply to all of the programs at the Canada Council. So you'll need one for Creating, Knowing, and Sharing, specifically for that program. And if you want to apply to the other programs at the Canada Council, Explore and Create, Engage and Sustain, what is it, touring? There's Touring Across Canada, what's it called? Arts Across Canada and Arts Abroad. Those are our touring programs. You would need another applicant profile to be able to access those programs. We're working out the bugs of combining those two, but at the moment, I've been told that you still need to create 2 profiles if you want to apply to the regular programs and Creating, Knowing, and Sharing, which is probably the best program that the Canada Council offers. And yes, they pay me to say that. So once you've created your account, you need to create and submit an applicant profile. What we're looking for in your applicant profile is your artistic resume. So you need to have a small little, hopefully 1-page document, because 20 pages is just a bit too much. That tells us about your training as an artist. If you've had formal training in an institution, that's fine. Self-taught, just as good. You had mentors, fantastic. We would also need to know what independent work you've produced. So for musicians, this would be EP releases, singles. A professional profile would require a full album. Back in the day, it used to be 12 songs. These days, it seems to be 6 to 7 songs online. It's kind of strange. But like I said, I'm pretty old. And the other thing that we're looking for is some sort of recognition from the community of you being and participating in the community as an artist. So those are the types of things that we're looking for. There are different types of applicant profiles. So when you are submitting an applicant profile, typically you're submitting to one of those. I'm going to say that there's 5, because I always end up forgetting one, but I'm going to say that there's 5. There's all types of organizational profiles, but I'm not going to touch those right now. But there is a professional artist profile, and there's an aspiring artist profile. There's also what we call cultural carriers, and there's also what we call arts professionals. So those are 4 different profiles. I'm going to focus on the 2 that are probably most relevant to you, which is the aspiring artist and the professional artist profile. An aspiring artist profile is really, really, really simple to get. All you really need to say is, I love music. I'm not a trained musician. I don't have an EP or an album released, but I have self-taught myself on piano, and I want to do other things to get better. And your CV should say that. What we don't want to see is that you've worked at Home Depot, Walmart, and aspiring to motivate yourself to work at McDonald's. You're a real go-getter. You love roller skating and any other types of indoor sports. That's not the kind of information we're looking for. We're looking for your artistic CV. So this is more of an impact for a professional artist profile, but In terms of the aspiring artist profile, we just need to know your artistic practice that you're interested in and any kind of training that you've had, whether it's YouTube tutorials or you've been to Juilliard and dropped out. So those are the kinds of things that we need for an aspiring artist profile. Aspiring artists in the Creating, Knowing, and Sharing program are those who are interested, possibly even trained in an artistic discipline, but have not had enough professional experience and accomplishments to receive a professional artist profile, which is the next profile that I'm going to talk about. So if you're going to submit a professional artist profile, typically your CV should have where you've been trained, any kind of awards or professional experience that you've undertaken. For musicians, that could be performances, that could be workshops that you've either taken or you've given. And third is the independent work that you've released to the public. So those are the three things that are really important for a professional artist. If you have an album that you've released, well, that is fantastic. That's exactly what we're looking for a professional arts profile. If you released an EP, it's a bit subjective as to how many, what kind of music, what genre, and where you are in your particular artistic career. Sometimes we'll accept an EP as your professional work released to the public, which is some of the language that you'll see within the description of the professional artistic profile. But other times, depending on a lot of different factors, we see thousands of applicant profile submissions per year. So they never look the same, unfortunately. They never look alike. So there's a large amount of discretion involved in trying to approve or decline them. The important thing to remember if your profile has been declined, it's that it's not a mark on you as an aspiring or professional artist. What it means is that we don't have enough information to validate the profile that you submitted. And often it just means you need to resubmit the profile with more information that is required. So that's what happens when we decline a profile. Often there's no room for dialogue and negotiation. It's just like you submit it, and let's just say we don't have enough information, so we decline it. We can't send you an email, opening up a discussion for you to try to figure out what's missing. You have to go back and read the description of the applicant profile and figure it out, saying, oh, well, I didn't do this. If you're really lucky, we will have been able and had the time to outline exactly what you're missing in the information you provided. Sometimes it's a question of you applied to the wrong profile. So, perhaps you're one of those artists who don't have a full album that they've released, that they've maybe released and performed here and there, and you still submitted for a professional artist profile. We decline it, saying that you don't have enough experience yet and that you should apply as an aspiring artist. And you can either do that, or you can just grit your teeth and release an album in the next few weeks and then say, there, I did it. Anyway, the big difference between the applicant profiles is more about, I'd say, the different components that become available for you to apply to. So an aspiring artist can apply to, in the Creating, Knowing, and Sharing program, they can apply to travel, they can apply to small-scale activities, and they can apply to short-term projects. What they cannot apply to is long-term projects in Creating, Knowing, and Sharing and organizational, what do they call it? Core organizations component. So, those wouldn't be realistic for an aspiring artist anyway. In fact, they're not realistic for most people. But I digress. So a professional artist would have access, a professional artist applicant profile will have access to travel grants, small-scale activity grants, short-term project grants, and long-term project grants. So not a huge difference. And in some cases, it's almost like, yeah, there's not a lot of way right there.
We have a quick question. Do you mind me interrupting you? So I'll just read it here from Evan. I couldn't determine which of the two profiles I fit into. It gives you the option to submit your CV to both profiles at the same time. Do you see any issues with doing this?
No, there's no issues with doing that. I think, in fact, I would encourage that. That would leave it to the discretion of the program officer to take a look at the information that you provide. So it's a good tactic if you're not sure which one you fit in. It's a bad tactic if you're submitting 12. 12 is a bad idea.
Profiles?
12 profiles. People do that. We only have 5 in CKS. So, I mean, you can apply to all 5. You'll get declined in most of them, depending on what information you send. We decline aspiring artists only because they don't submit anything artistic. So that would be the only reason to decline an aspiring artist.
Right. I had applied for professional, and then I was like, well, maybe I'm actually aspiring. So I'd already been approved as professional. So I applied as aspiring, and they rejected it, saying like, no, you're already a professional artist. You don't need to be aspiring. So they will tell you if you don't fit in one. So not to worry. Thank you for that.
You know, an amusing little internal thing is that the Creating, Knowing, and Sharing program kind of pioneered the whole aspiring artist profile. And now the non-Indigenous programs at the Canada Council are also creating what they call a NECAP. What do they call it? New Emerging something artist. But they're also creating their own version of emerging artist profile. So it's a bit of our little influence. One of the other things about aspiring artist profiles is that typically when you submit a project, it will require that you have a mentor. So it means that you need to have somebody guiding you in the project that you're submitting to the Canada Council. So
thank you. I'll hide myself.
Validation. So yeah, as you may or may not be able to tell, I kind of make this up as I go. I've been known to talk for hours, and there's a vast plethora of information that is required, and the Canada Council expects you to read everything on their website, and it's kind of unfortunate, but there's a lot of information, and it can be intimidating to apply, but you have to keep in mind that it's not always about the money. That I often tell people that if you're going to apply to any grant program, it's more about the visibility and the promotion of your own work than it is about the money. Because, first of all, the mathematics are against you. The success rate in most programs are anywhere between 7% to 30 to 45%. So, that's almost 1 out of 2, 50% is your best bet. In our program, it's been as low as 17. It's been hovering between 17% and 33%. So 1 out of 3. So the math is against you with regards to getting the grant. And it's not a matter of how good you are. There's a variety of factors involved. But it's just we have way more applications than we have money available. And that's the simple fact of why you're most likely not to be successful. However, when you apply, the money's good, but you're not always going to get it. But you will get 2 other things. One is the ability to write about yourself in a way that other people will support you, which is a skill that you're going to need to have as an artist in any discipline, specifically music, because we're here. The second thing you're going to get is professional people looking at your work in a very intimate way. And that is a really subtle way of promoting yourself and the work that you do, and it pays dividends down the road. And sure, it doesn't give you $100 in your bank account, but it's almost money in your credibility bank when you meet other people. Was there another question, Ashley?
No, I just wanted to add to that. It's the odds don't seem that wonderful, but I also have to remember that these funding programs are not just for art musicians; they're all arts. So people who are dancers and filmmakers are also applying. So it's competitive in that way. I also just wanted to add that.
Great. And absolutely true.
Mm-hmm. But the reason I want to say that is when you're writing about yourself, the people who are on the jury aren't necessarily knowledgeable of the music industry. So when you're writing, you have to learn how to write to people who might not know who you are as an emerging artist. You might be well known in the music industry, but especially in Manitoba, each kind of art sector is kind of very divided. And I don't really know anyone in the dance community, for example, or in theater or anything like that. So just being able to talk about your art in the context to someone who doesn't understand what you're doing. That's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, it's one of the finer details of grant writing for sure. Because it is a multidisciplinary program, there might not be a lot of people that know what a radio tracker is for music. And you should also write from the perspective that the people reading your application might not know who you are. In fact, it's very likely they don't. I live in an area of Canada where nobody knows who the hell Tom Jackson is. But you've probably not heard of Shawit either, who is super popular around here. So, these are some of the things that you got to take into consideration. When I invite peer assessors to come in to do the assessments, what I try to do is find people who know the applicants, who would know the applications, who would be familiar with the region. Here's a few details that I could add is that typically we get around 80 to 120 applications. Let's just say 100. It's a nice round number. So we get 100 applications every deadline for short-term projects, which is probably what you think about when you hear the word arts grants. Short-term projects are probably the model that you're thinking of. It's a program that is multidisciplinary. It allows 12 months of activities to be funded. It has a maximum amount of $100,000, although I strongly encourage you not to apply for that, unless, of course, you're Tom Jackson. But then again, you need to write about as if people don't know who you are. And I'm not sure if Tom can do that. Are you online here, Tom? I didn't think so. Anyway, so the short-term projects component is really what you're looking for if you want to create an album. If you want to provide workshops up and down Manitoba to smaller First Nation communities with regards to songwriting or instrument specialization, there's a variety of things that you could do. You could work with language learners, translation services, creating texts, working with mentors. The music industry is really big on mentorships because, quite honestly, there's no one way to the top. There's no one way to make a living in the music industry. You basically find your way. And often we end up doing that through talking to other people, networking, and having those kinds of mentorships. So this program would allow for that as well. When somebody applies for an album, and I'm going to work with the averages and assume that you're looking to do a short-term project, for an album. I'm going to assume that's everybody's project. Later, when we get to the question period, you can tell me what you're thinking about doing in terms of a project. So we're basically at the application stage. You've submitted an applicant profile for validation. It has been validated, You go back to your web portal and you can see a whole bunch of program components have opened up for you. You click on those program components and they ask you if you want to apply after giving you all this information. And you say yes, and then they run you through the hamster wheel of what it is to apply. And it's basically a series of questions and supplemented with information, letters, project plan and timeline. These are all things that you're going to have to consider. And like I said, maybe you might not get the money, but just going through the process works your planning with regards to completing projects and things that you need to think about. So if you're planning an album, you're going to want to know what the dates are. So when do you want to start it? How long is it going to take you? I could talk about my project, my album project, which I received a grant for from the province of Quebec. They gave me a grant to do an album that was supposed to start in September. And I am still probably about more than halfway through. I'm hoping to release it in June. So let's say September to June would be my dates. I've involved a number of people to help me with the instrumentation. I was going to swear for a second, but I'm just going to say I'm a terrible guitar player. So I've had some people helping me with regards to guitar playing. I'm a terrible vocalist. So I've had people helping me with my vocals and doing background vocals and helping me solidify some of the melodies. So these are all expenses because I'm not going to go cheap with these people. They're not my cousins. I got to pay them for the work that they do. So this is all integrated into my plan and my budget. So I'm paying these people with money that I received from the grant. As you may or may not have noticed, have enough equipment here to do some home recording. However, I pay somebody to do the mixing. So I send them the tracks, they mix in their studio. Saves a lot of money because I don't have to physically move to their studio to record all my tracks. And it saves a lot of time, quite honestly. So that's another expense in my budget and in my planning. So also another thing to consider. Once they're mixed, they need to be mastered. And if you know about this thing called Spotify, it's a wonderful thing. All my friends love it. And you have to master your tracks in order for them to be standardized within Spotify, is what I've been told. I don't do that work. I pay somebody to do that work. It comes from my grant money. So that has to be planned for as well in advance. That's another service, another expense. I have my fingers crossed that it'll all be ready by June. I'm also trying to engage with graphic designers to design. Back in the day, it would have been a nice, big, beautiful vinyl album cover or CD cover. Those were the things. These days, because it's just an online release, it'll probably be just a tiny little graphic bug, and it'll follow the album around wherever it goes. But I still need to pay somebody to develop that, to make sure that it's in the proper format and that it'll fit everywhere. Just like the music on Spotify, there are certain standards that they need to attend. So I can't do it myself. I have a grant. I'm going to pay somebody to do that. So all of this stuff factors into the application that I submitted with a timeline, with people that are involved and when it's going to get done, how much it's going to cost, and distribution. When we talk about distribution in music, it's something very specific. And typically distribution these days is Bandcamp, Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, whatever. Back in the day, you used to actually have to be a bit more hands-on. Like, I'm going to get 2,000 CDs printed up and I'm going to sell them at shows. I mean, that was the way that people did it back in the 90s. Not that I'm that old. The late 1900s, that was somewhat the way that operations would go. So just to say that when you're thinking about all of these things, this is what a grant application does. It kind of brings the imaginary, oh, well, I kind of think I'd love to be able to do that. Well, it gives you a step-by-step on what you need to accomplish in order to get there, to get that album done, to get it released. And in terms of distribution, if you have a record company who's willing to take on all the stuff, there are issues there with rights management and standardization of distribution, submitting applications to do showcasing, all that fun stuff later on. If you put that in your grant application with regards to the way that it will be disseminated, when we talk about artistic disciplines, it's usually about the dissemination of the work. That would, impress a peer assessment committee if you thought that far ahead that you have a plan on how you're going to reach the audience that you think you can. So that's pretty much the application process. It can be pretty nasty online from what I'm told. There are a number of files that you need to upload along with just the application form and the budget. So all of that is detailed. Like I said, I'm not an expert in the web portal, but this is what I've heard. Was there another question, Ashley?
There is, yeah. No, this is great to hear. It can be a little overwhelming with the portal. So I do recommend anyone watching, if this is your first time applying to an arts council, is to take the time to actually look through the application and the portal, and not just open it up for the first time the day that you're submitting the application, because that's an awful thing to do to yourself, and I don't recommend hurting yourself in that way, as opposed to other ways to hurt yourself. Anyway, moving on. So Evan also asked, so regarding short-term projects, if I had to choose a priority, it would obviously be the ability to receive support to create the art itself regarding pre-production and production. However, my dream project would involve bringing in a lot of Indigenous co-writers and instrumentalists, as well as the costs associated with marketing, including media creation. The difference in terms of the budget can be $20,000 to $30,000. If this is my first project, would you recommend focusing on the creation of the art or shooting for the stars?
Well, that's actually a really good question, and definitely something that we need to cover if you're first-time applicants. There's nothing in our literature and on our website that discourages you from shooting at the stars, or for the stars, or whatever that expression is. However, I would say be more pragmatic. If your best friend is Tom Jackson and you want to do a songwriting collaboration with him and he's all for it and he doesn't want any money, well, then you're good. If you want to work with William Prince and Don Amaro and Isla Barker, and they're busy, they need money, and they don't know who you are. First of all, they might say no. So if you wanted to collaborate with them and they said yes, initially they would need to send a letter of support, because you can't just name drop in an application. You can't just put in their name, say, I'm going to work with Tom Jackson, here's his bio. And he told me, at the pool hall that he was going to work with me. But everybody knows Tom Jackson doesn't hang out at the pool hall anymore. So anymore. So he would need to send a letter if he's really involved in your project. Otherwise, people don't believe you. So that's one aspect. With regards to shooting for the stars, certainly first-time applicants, I would say no. Like, it's more about getting familiar with the arts granting system, because I want to say this, but I'm not sure if it's true. Just like public speaking, applying to grants, it can be addictive. You can get addicted to applying to stuff because it gets easier. Like, the first time is hard. I want to say giving birth, but I'm not of that persuasion, so I feel awkward saying that. But it's difficult at first, but it gets easier, and you get better at it. And so, yeah, you can get addicted to it. We see a lot of people who submit too many applications per year, and you're only allowed 3. So it happens. But in terms of going for the big enchilada, you want $100,000 because there's 12 people that you want to work with. They're in different parts of the country. They might even be international. We have people that want to work, that have worked with the family of Bob Marley, so they want a grant so they can go to Jamaica for 3 months and work with Bob Marley's family. Just me mentioning that to you, if you were a peer assessor, you would probably want to be a bit more informed and want more details and be reassured that the money is not just to go for a 3-month vacation. So that's one thing. Asking for $100,000 and your first time grant to work with all these people that you've just sent bios and there's no letters, that is probably going to fall into the unsuccessful side of things. A grant that I can talk about, because the hard thing is always about not giving out too much private information. So there's a very prominent Indigenous musician who's been around since the 70s, not Tom Jackson. And his project was for $100,000 to visit a variety of different communities across Canada and do workshops, songwriting workshops with them to develop songs that he will eventually produce. So in addition to the final production of the creation that he would have with all of those communities, he was providing artistic training, for lack of a better word. And this is something that just doesn't happen at the First Nation community level. Like, there's not a lot of people going to First Nation communities. There's 633 across the country. Not all of them are covered by artists willing to make that trip and to deal with what we know can be very difficult. So peer assessors were delighted. And not all of the communities had sent letters of confirming of their support, but they still went for it. So that's an example of somebody who could do it. I would say that, just to kind of couch it a bit, they were not common grant applicants. So they did not apply for grants very often, but this was one, and I don't think that they've applied since. So this is about 4 years ago. And they've completed their project, in case you were wondering. So everybody's happy. So we had some faith in the project. We had some faith in the individual. They were prominent. They didn't have everything, but we still gave them the full amount based upon reputation and possibilities and risk management and whatever else you could think of in terms of that discussion. More often than anything else, we get the first-time applicant who asks for $100,000 for a variety of different things. And usually it's not to collaborate with other people. It's just recording costs a lot. They want to travel around the country. They want to do a CD release party. They want to hire 5 or 6 different trackers in different regions. They want to do a CD release party in not just one city. No, they want to do a CD release party in Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Toronto. They'll skip over Montreal and Quebec because they're not important. But, that's excessive. And again, likely not to be competitive enough to reach to go into the successful pile. There's only, out of 100 applications, there's only about 30 of them that are going to get funded. And what we're looking for is, specifically in the Creating, Knowing, and Sharing program, is applications that are going to have a high impact on the Indigenous arts community. So that's another thing to keep in consideration. And it's also what sets us a bit apart from the mainstream programs such as Explore and Create. They have a component called From Concept to Realization. It has the same function, that you can apply to. Two big differences are what I just explained. Creating, Knowing, and Sharing, it expects you to have an impact on the Indigenous arts community. Explore and Create, on the other hand, is more based upon artistic merit, and they also get a lot more applications. So those are some of the big differences. But in the end, the success rate is about the same. So I guess it depends on what you're doing with your project, how you plan on disseminating the work, how you are presenting the impact of what you're doing with regards to the Indigenous arts community. So that will definitely give you an edge in creating, knowing, and sharing. What I tell peer assessors when they come in, and I choose them all, is that a strong application clearly identifies the applicant and situates them in their artistic practice of where they're at in their career. It identifies the participants that are involved in the project to reach the objective, which is a third thing that is really important, as I mentioned, to impact the Indigenous arts community in some way, shape, or form. In addition to those three things, there's two more. One is the budget. So the items in the budget need to reflect, the objective of the program and the participants that are involved. And the last thing is support material. So support material is, anything that you would send in with regards to who you are as an artist. There are lots of people that will talk circles around you of how great they are, and then they send their support material, and you find out that, they do everything in their basement with an old Linn drum machine and an out-of-tune acoustic guitar. So support material can be really important in proving you're where you say you are in your artistic career. So when I talk to peer assessors, I say a strong application has a clear link between all of those five things, and they speak in a very clear way. So I don't need to know, and in fact, none of the peer assessors need to know what it's like to live as an Indigenous person in the socioeconomic political situation that we find ourselves in the 2022 century. All of the peer assessors are Indigenous people. And what they're really looking to see in your application is, what are you going to do? Who are you? What are you going to do with the money? So those are the important questions to focus on. And it's not out of, well, I'm writing this album because I feel that there's a misrepresentation of who I am as an Indigenous person within, the area of Fossambeau-sur-le-Lac, and there's not enough of this in the world, and I'm going to what I hear a lot is, I'm going to make my culture shine through my art, like as if nobody has ever done that before. Anyway, I hope that clarifies a few things. I know that we're starting to run short on time. I was hoping to be less verbose. The next two steps, as I mentioned, are the notification of results and reporting on the grant. Notification of results goes through your web portal account. You have a 2 out of 3 chance of getting a thank you for your application, but you're not successful this time around. Don't be discouraged. It just means that you need to try again, and you need to reread what you submitted, and you need to get better at it. And you might think that I'm just saying this because I want you to apply. Well, yeah, I want you to apply. I want you to succeed in your career. We're not short on applicants. Like I just did, I'm in the middle of a competition right now. I have 100 applications, 50 of them, like a clear 50 of them are new applicants. They never applied before. And we get that every time. And we're not even doing outreach. Like we've under this pandemic, I've been working from home. It's been glorious, but I've not been doing any outreach because I'm not allowed to travel. And outreach online really sucks. So it's really for your own benefit. And sure, like I said, the money is fantastic. The typical album project, will range between 30,000 to 45,000. I mean, those are very generous numbers, and you can do a lot to create an album with collaborations, even with a little bit of travel, paying for studio time, session musicians, the whole kit. Even buying a lawyer or administrator to help you register with SOCAN, which is another thing, that we don't get a chance to talk about much. But, going for the whole $100,000, thinking that, it's owed to you is a tough sell. It's really tough to convince people. Just like I tell a lot of people, live within your means, which means when you apply, be realistic in your request. Be realistic on who you are, what you want to accomplish, and who you're going to be doing it with. And that level of honesty will go really far in a grant application, and it makes things really clear for the people who are doing the assessments. I don't know. I think I could trail off there. If there's any other questions, maybe.
It doesn't look like we have any. Oh, I'm getting a little bit of an echo. It doesn't look like we have any questions, but if anyone who's watching has any, please feel free to enter them now, or you can email me at ashley@manitobamusic.com. I've put the email in the comments. If you are, watching this after we've streamed it, or you're laying in bed later after watching and you're like, wait, what about that? Let me know. I'm happy to answer it, or find the answer for you. This has been really wonderful. Noel, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences and knowledge on this topic. I know we do tend to have a lot of first-time applicants for the Grant Writing Incubator, and although it can sometimes seem a little daunting and intimidating, as someone who has very recently applied for the first time for a large project, I know how it feels, and I really hope that people can take the opportunity to apply for the incubator to kind of guide them through this process. I'm starting to ramble, so I think that is a good time to end things. And we're also getting spammed on YouTube, so I have to go deal with that. Noel, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up for the day?
Just one last thought. If you're going to work as an artist, if you're going to work as a musician, you are an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur means that you do it all. You should do it all. Don't expect other people to do things for you. Even the administrative stuff, don't wait to be discovered by someone, because that heightens your chances of getting it taken advantage of. So all of these things come into play when you realize that it's up to you to make your own art career. And art grants are just one aspect. I mean, there's income taxes, there's the legal financial matters, promotion, distribution, all of those things. It all has to be taken care by one person, and that's you. And so in addition to the craft, there's also the business. And I urge you to consider both equally as much as you can in the best of your ability. C'est tout.
Thank you so much. And speaking on business basics, we actually did a live stream workshop series on Facebook and YouTube called On Track Indigenous Music Business Basics that covered taxes, legal things, international touring, and royalty registration. So if that's something that you need to brush up on, you can go to indigenousmusic.ca/ontrack to find all of those, also on our YouTube and Facebook page. With that, it is time to go. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today or watching this after the live stream. As I said previously, our deadline for the Arts Council Grant Writing Incubator is this Friday, February 11th. You don't have to have a complete application when you're submitting for that, but to have a basic outline as to what your plan is. And we I will set you up with a mentor to help you write in preparation for the March 16th deadline. Tomorrow, we will have another info session at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time with Tracy Longbottom of Manitoba Arts Council to talk about the Indigenous 360 program that they have available for Indigenous artists to apply to. Their deadline is on March 25th. You can apply to the incubator to create an application for both of those projects if that's something that you are interested in, because there is some overlap in the requirements and how you can lay out your application. With that, I will let you go. Thank you, everyone. You are all wonderful and valid artists, and I appreciate all of you, and I hope to see you next time. With that, bye.